At my father-in-law's retirement gala in Manhattan, my name tag was missing from the VIP reception table. My husband David chuckled softly. Must be an oversight from the event coordinator. As his family exchanged knowing glances, I calmly said, "Seems I'm not worthy of recognition," and walked out. 25 minutes later, they discovered I'd cancelled the entire corporate celebration venue, catering, entertainment, everything. Their faces turned ashen white. "Seems I'm not worthy of recognition," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor racing through my chest. The words hung in the air of that exclusive Manhattan club as 15 pairs of eyes stared back at me, with expressions ranging from shock to poorly concealed satisfaction. My husband David's dismissive chuckle as he'd said, "Must be an oversight from the event coordinator," still echoed in my ears as I turned and walked away from the VIP table where was no name tag for me. The humiliation burned through my veins as I exited the university club, but not a single tear fell. Instead, I felt an eerie calm take over as I pulled out my phone and opened the corporate event management app I built my career on. I had 25 minutes before they'd realize what I was doing, and that was more than enough time. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank each of you for being part of this incredible journey. Sometimes the most powerful moments come when we finally recognize our worth after years of being diminished. If you've ever felt like an outsider looking in at your own life, this story might resonate deeply with you. Before we witness Sarah's transformation from Manhattan's premier corporate event planner to a woman reclaiming her dignity in the city that never sleeps, hit subscribe to join our community of readers who appreciate stories of self-discovery and unexpected strength. Now let's step behind the curtain of a marriage built on appearances and financial deception. My name is Sarah Elizabeth Morgan Morrison. 6 years ago, I was just Sarah Morgan, the founder of Prestige Corporate Solutions, Manhattan's most sought-after corporate event planning company. I'd built my business from the ground up after putting myself through Columbia Business School while working 3 jobs to make ends meet. Every elegant product launch, every perfectly executed merger celebration, every Fortune 500 gala in Manhattan had my invisible fingerprints all over it. My reputation for discretion, innovative execution, and ability to pull off the impossible had made me the go-to planner for the city's corporate elite. That's how I met David Morrison at the tech summit I organized for Goldman Sachs. Tall, with perfectly styled salt and pepper hair and a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes, David had the easy confidence of someone who'd never worried about money. He was charming in that practiced way of men born into Wall Street privilege. But there was something genuine in his interest in my work. "So you're the mastermind behind all this?" he'd asked, gesturing to the transformed trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange. "My father has been trying to figure out who to hire for his retirement celebration next year. I think I just found our answer." One contract led to another, and soon I was regularly planning events for Morrison & Associates, the prestigious investment banking firm. The Morrisons were Manhattan aristocracy with old money that traced back to railroad barons and steel magnates. They had that particular brand of wealth that didn't need to show off. It was evident in the subtle quality of everything they owned, the ease with which they navigated their world. Our romance began 8 months after I started working for his firm. David pursued me with the same determination he brought to his work as managing partner at the family's investment bank. There were warning signs, of course. The way his mother Catherine looked at me with barely concealed disapproval when David first introduced me as more than his event planner. The casual comments about my humble beginnings. The surprise in people's voices when they discovered I was dating a Morrison. "You've done well for yourself," Catherine had said during our first dinner together as a couple, her smile not reaching her eyes. Self-made success is so American. I ignored these signs because I was falling in love with David. He seemed different from his family, more open-minded, less concerned with lineage and status. When he proposed 13 months after our first date, I said yes despite the nagging feeling that I was entering a world that would never truly accept me. The wedding was naturally the social event of the season. I planned much of it myself, unable to trust another planner with my own celebration. Catherine had opinions about everything. The venue wasn't traditional enough. The menu too adventurous, the guest list missing key Wall Street names. I compromised where I could, held firm where it mattered to me. David played peacemaker, but I noticed he rarely contradicted his mother directly. After the wedding, the undermining became more systematic. Despite using my company for their events, the Morrisons constantly questioned my decisions, changed plans last minute, and took credit for my ideas at corporate gatherings. My opinions were solicited then dismissed. My background in event planning was treated as a charming hobby rather than a successful business. Sarah has such a good eye for these things, Catherine would say to her friends, patting my hand condescendingly. It's almost like having a personal party planner in the family. David never defended me. He'd shrug and tell me later that's just how his mother was, that I shouldn't take it personally. But it was personal, and it got worse as the years passed. The opportunity to plan Robert's retirement gala should have been my crowning achievement. A week-long celebration in Manhattan culminating in a dinner at the most exclusive, private club overlooking Central Park. I threw myself into creating the perfect event, leveraging every contact I had in the industry. It was during this planning that I discovered the first cracks in the Morrison facade. The deposits for venues were delayed, vendors called asking about payments. When I mentioned it to David, he brushed it off, saying the family accountant was just being cautious with large expenditures, but I saw the statements accidentally left open on his laptop. Investments gone bad, properties mortgaged to the hilt, lines of credit maxed out. The Morrison fortune was dwindling fast. Still, I kept planning, using my own company's credit line to secure deposits when needed. I told myself it was temporary, that David would explain everything once the retirement celebration was behind us. Then came the morning of the gala setup. David was in his home office when his phone pinged with a message. I never checked his phone. I'd always respected his privacy, but something made me look that morning. The message preview from Jessica was clear on his screen. Can't wait to celebrate with you tonight. Have you told her yet? My fingers moved without conscious thought, opening the message thread with Jessica Reynolds, David's Harvard Business School classmate, the woman his parents had always adored, the woman they had expected him to marry before he met me. The messages went back months, plans made, a future discussed, and yes, a baby. Their baby, due in 3 months. I took screenshots, forwarded them to myself, then deleted the evidence from his phone. I packed my emotional armor, plastered on a smile, and prepared for the evening with my husband and his family. Now standing outside that university club in Manhattan, I made my choice. I wouldn't confront David before the gala. I would let events unfold, and when they did, I would be ready. Our car arrived at the Peninsula Hotel just as the golden Manhattan sunset painted the city's skyline in brilliant hues. I'd arranged private transportation for the entire Morrison entourage. David's parents Robert and Catherine, his sister Amanda with her husband Gregory, his brother Jonathan with his wife Claire, and 2 sets of aunts and uncles. The convoy of sleek black Mercedes sedans waiting at the terminal should have impressed them. Instead, Catherine's first words stepping from the vehicle were, "I thought I'd specified the hotel cars, Sarah. These seem rather generic." I bit my tongue as I had countless times before. The hotel had a scheduling issue. These are actually from Executive Transport. They service most of the Fortune 500 CEOs in the city. My explanation fell on deaf ears as she was already discussing something with Robert, their heads bent together in that conspiratorial way that always excluded me. The Peninsula welcomed us with the 5-star treatment I'd meticulously arranged. Champagne flowed in the private lounge while bellhops whisked away our luggage. I'd spent months securing the perfect accommodations, selecting suites with the best Central Park views, arranging welcome baskets filled with gourmet delicacies, and planning personalized schedules for each family member. Catherine barely glanced at her itinerary before setting it aside. "We'll just play it by ear," she said, waving away weeks of careful planning. "The family knows Manhattan quite well." Our suite was magnificent. A terrace overlooking Central Park, fresh flowers in every room, and a bottle of David's favorite Barolo breathing on the sideboard. But the moment we entered, and he stepped onto the terrace, speaking in hushed tones. "Work?" I asked when he returned. Just some client issues, he replied, not meeting my eyes. Let's get ready for Dad's big night. The welcome dinner I'd planned at a charming bistro in Tribeca became the first clear sign of my exclusion. Somehow the seating arrangement shifted just before we arrived, and I found myself at the far end of the table, separated from David by his cousin and aunt. Throughout the meal, inside jokes flew across the table, stories of previous family trips from which I'd been absent. When I attempted to join the conversation about the week's planned activities, Amanda interrupted. "Aw, Sarah, we've actually decided to do some family shopping tomorrow instead of the museum tour." "Family shopping?" I asked. "You know," Catherine interjected smoothly, "just some traditions we have." "You'd be bored, dear. Why don't you use the time to check on the retirement arrangements? That's your expertise, after all." The pattern continued throughout the next few days. I'd wake to find David already gone, a hastily scribbled note about meeting his father for breakfast. The family would disappear for hours on impromptu excursions that somehow everyone knew about except me. Whispered conversations in corners of the hotel lobby abruptly stopped when I approached. Dinner reservations mysteriously changed to accommodate old friends who happened to be in Manhattan. Friends who looked at me with barely disguised curiosity, as if assessing how I was handling what was coming. On the third morning, opportunity presented itself when David rushed to meet his brother, leaving his briefcase unlocked. The documents inside confirmed my worst fears. Draft separation papers prepared by the Morrison family attorney, dated 2 months earlier. A proposed settlement offering a pittance compared to what I was entitled to. And most damning, a script, an actual script, outlining how David would announce our impending divorce at his father's retirement dinner, presenting it as a mutual decision reached amicably. My hands trembled as I photographed each page with my phone. There it was in black and white, the perfect, stage-managed exit of the unsuitable wife, timed for maximum public impact yet minimum social embarrassment for the Morrisons. Robert's retirement wasn't just a celebration. It was to be my funeral as a Morrison. Instead of confronting David, I channeled my anger into methodical documentation. Each day I made excuses to return to our suit alone, searching for more evidence. I found bank statements showing massive withdrawals to offshore accounts, email printouts discussing the liquidation of assets, before the situation becomes public. A handwritten note from Catherine to David. "Once this unpleasantness with Sarah is behind us, Jessica will be welcomed back properly." My professional mask remained firmly in place as I continued overseeing the retirement preparations. I confirmed floral arrangements, met with the club manager, approved the custom menu cards, all while collecting digital breadcrumbs of the Morrisons' financial house of cards. When anyone asked why I seemed distracted, I blamed last-minute event details. In reality, I was building my arsenal. The morning of Robert's retirement gala dawned bright and clear over Manhattan. I woke early, slipping out of bed without disturbing David. The day's schedule was packed. A private morning tour of the Federal Reserve, lunch at an exclusive members club, then returning to the hotel to prepare for the evening's grand dinner. As the event planner, I needed to arrive at the University Club early to ensure everything was perfect. I was in the hotel's business center printing final confirmations when I overheard Catherine's voice from the adjacent concierge desk. The dividing wall was thin, and her imperious tone carried clearly. "There will be 15 seats, not 16. She instructed someone over the phone. "I don't care what the original reservation says. The seating chart I sent is final." A pause, then, "No, that won't be a problem. The arrangement has been discussed with my son. His wife will not be staying for the dinner. A professional matter, you understand. No need for questions when she leaves." My blood turned to ice as the pieces clicked into place. The missing name tag wasn't an oversight or last-minute adjustment. It was the centerpiece of their plan, a public humiliation designed to make my exit look like my choice rather than their orchestration. I closed my laptop, gathered my papers, and walked to the elevator with measured steps. Inside, I pulled out my phone and began making a new set of arrangements. If the Morrisons wanted a memorable retirement dinner, I would ensure it was unforgettable. Just not in the way they had planned. I arrived at the University Club an hour before the other guests, as any good event planner would. The rooftop venue offered a breathtaking panoramic view of Central Park, bathed in the amber glow of sunset. I personally inspected every detail, from the calligraphed place cards to the arrangement of Robert's favorite white peonies and roses. The champagne was chilling, the 7-course tasting menu confirmed, and the 3-tiered retirement cake was a masterpiece of culinary craftsmanship. "Is everything to your satisfaction, Mrs. Morrison?" asked James, the club's event director. "Perfect," I replied, knowing it would be the last event I would plan for the Morrisons. Despite everything, my professional pride demanded nothing less than excellence. I returned to the hotel to change into the midnight blue Valentino gown I'd purchased specifically for tonight. As I applied my makeup with steady hands, I studied my reflection. 6 years of trying to fit into a world that was determined to reject me had taken its toll, but not in the way the Morrisons might have hoped. Instead of breaking me, they had hardened my resolve. The Morrison family had arranged to meet in the hotel lobby before departing together for the club. I arrived precisely on time to find them all waiting. Robert resplendent in his custom tuxedo, Catherine magnificent in vintage Chanel, her diamond necklace catching the light. David's eyes widened slightly when he saw me, perhaps remembering what had attracted him to me in the first place, or perhaps calculating how soon he could be free of me. "Sarah, darling, you look lovely," Catherine said, kissing near my cheeks. "We're just waiting for the cars." The drive to the university club was short, filled with artificial chatter about the day's activities from which I'd been excluded. As we ascended in the elevator to the rooftop, David placed his hand at the small of my back, a gesture that once felt intimate, but now seemed performative for the benefit of the elevator attendant. The doors opened to reveal the stunning terrace I had designed, transformed into an elegant dining space under the stars. Central Park stretched below us, a testament to both grandeur and the inevitable changes that come to all empires. How fitting. Robert entered first, greeted with enthusiastic applause from waiting family members. One by one, everyone moved toward the large round table I had specified. A table that should have seated 16. I followed behind David, who moved purposefully toward his assigned seat next to his father. I approached the spot where my place card should have been, only to find nothing. No name tag, no place setting, no acknowledgement that I existed. For a moment, I stood frozen, the perfect tableau of confusion around me. Conversations continued as everyone settled into their seats, studiously avoiding my gaze. The wait staff, who had confirmed the seating with me just hours earlier, looked uncomfortable but remained silent. "Is something wrong?" Catherine asked innocently, her voice carrying just enough to draw everyone's attention. "There seems to be a mistake," I said, my voice calmer than I felt. "My name tag is missing." The meticulously choreographed scene unfolded exactly as they had planned. Furrowed brows exchanged glances, David half rising from his chair in a performance of concern that never reached his eyes. "That's odd," Amanda said, examining the table. "Did someone count wrong?" Robert cleared his throat. Perhaps there was a miscommunication with the club staff. Then came David's line, delivered with a practiced casualness that made my skin crawl. He chuckled, actually chuckled, and said, "Must be an oversight from the event coordinator." The family laughed, not uproariously, which would have been too obvious, but with the gentle amusement of people sharing an inside joke. In that moment, I saw it all with perfect clarity, the calculated humiliation, the public setting chosen to prevent a scene, the groundwork for stories they would tell later about poor Sarah, who couldn't handle the pressure of Morrison family life. My gaze moved slowly around the table, taking in each face. Catherine triumphant behind her retirement smile. Robert, uncomfortable but complicit. Amanda and Jonathan enjoying the spectacle. Their spouses, aware enough of the cruelty to look slightly ashamed but not enough to object. And David, my husband, the man who had once promised to stand by me against the world, watching me with detached curiosity, like a scientist observing an experiment. I could have created a scene. I could have demanded a chair, exposed their plan in front of the waitstaff, made the kind of public display that would live in family lore for generations. That's what they expected, what they had prepared for. Catherine would comfort David over his unstable wife, and the divorce narrative would write itself. Instead, I straightened my shoulders, lifted my chin, and delivered the line that would begin my reclamation of power. Seems I'm not worthy of recognition. 4 words. Simple. Devastating in their truth. The smiles faltered. David's expression shifted from smugness to uncertainty. I had departed from their script. I'll see myself out, I added, turning away with the dignity that had been my armor throughout my marriage. Sarah, don't be dramatic. David called after me. Another line from their playbook. We can fix this. I didn't respond. I walked through the university club, nodding politely to the staff who had witnessed my humiliation. In the elevator, I finally allowed myself a deep breath, then another. By the time I reached the street, my hands had stopped shaking. A small cafe across from the club offered the perfect vantage point. I ordered an espresso and pulled out my phone. This was the moment I'd prepared for. The 25 minutes of freedom while the Morrisons congratulated themselves on their successful ejection of the unsuitable wife. First, I sent a prepared email to James, the club manager, with instructions that had been agreed upon as a surprise contingency. A common practice in high-level event planning. Attached was proof of my authority as the account holder and event coordinator, along with confirmation of immediate payment reversal. Next came the calls to the string quartet scheduled for tomorrow's brunch, the private gallery guide for the following day, the yacht captain for the Hamptons excursion, the vineyard in the Hudson Valley for the final weekend. One by one, I canceled everything, transferring the deposits I'd made with my own company's credit line back to my business account. With each cancellation, I felt lighter. The emails from David began arriving, first annoyed, then confused, then increasingly desperate as my tactics became clear. I ignored them all. 23 minutes after I had walked out of the university club, I finished my espresso and paid the bill. It was time for the final act. I stood, smoothed my Valentino gown, and walked back across the street to witness the moment when Robert Morrison's perfect retirement celebration crumbled around him. I entered the university club through the service entrance, a route I had familiarized myself with during my earlier inspection. James, the club manager, met me with a concerned expression. Mrs. Morrison, are you certain about this? It is most unusual. I'm absolutely certain, James, and I appreciate your discretion. I handed him a sealed envelope. This contains proof of the payment reversals and the cancellation of my company's guarantee for tonight's expenses, as we discussed. The Morrisons will need to provide a new method of payment to continue their dinner. James nodded solemnly. In the events world, relationships were everything. I had worked with James on 3 previous occasions for other Manhattan clients. He owed me favors, and while he might find my request peculiar, professional courtesy dictated he comply. When should I inform them? He asked. I'll text you in 5 minutes. I'd like to observe from somewhere discreet. He guided me to a small alcove near the kitchen entrance with a perfect view of the Morrison table. They were in the middle of toasting Robert, champagne flutes raised high, faces glowing with self-satisfaction. The first course had just been served. The imported cushy oysters that Robert had specifically requested. It had been almost too easy to dismantle Robert's retirement week. Most high-end vendors in the hospitality industry operate in a network of mutual trust and references. As the event planner who had made all the arrangements and whose company credit line secured the deposits, I had the authority to make changes. The digital trail of emails, contracts, and payment authorizations all bore my name and signature, not Robert's or David's. My phone vibrated. A new message from David. Sarah, where are you? Stop being childish and come back. Then another. Dad is asking about you. You're embarrassing yourself. I didn't respond. Instead, I texted Carmen at the Hudson Valley Vineyard, where the family was scheduled to stay for the weekend leg of the trip. Carmen confirmed the cancellation and wished me well, adding that my substantial tip to her staff would be refunded separately to my business account. My phone vibrated again with messages from David, now arriving in rapid succession. The hotel just called. They said our reservation for tomorrow night is cancelled. What are you doing? Sarah, this is ridiculous. Call me immediately. This is not funny. Fix this now. I texted James. You may proceed. From my hidden vantage point, I watched as James approached the table with 2 other staff members. He leaned down to speak quietly to Robert, who was seated at the head of the table opposite Catherine. The family continued eating initially, paying little attention to the interruption. Robert's expression changed first, from polite interest to confusion, then alarm. He pulled out his wallet, speaking more animatedly to James. The manager shook his head apologetically, showing Robert something on a tablet. By now, the entire table had noticed the disruption. Catherine set down her fork, her regal posture betraying the first hints of tension. David was staring at his phone, presumably reading my latest text explaining exactly what I had done. All deposits have been returned to my company account. All arrangements for the week cancelled. Your family's financial issues are about to become very public. Enjoy your oysters. The scene unfolded like a perfectly choreographed ballad of chaos. Robert stood, his face flushed with anger or embarrassment, perhaps both. Catherine's hand flew to her diamond necklace, clutching it as if for support. Amanda was frantically whispering to her husband. Jonathan pulled out his phone, presumably trying to verify what was happening. And David sat frozen, his face drained of color. Unlike the others, he understood the full implications. He knew what I had discovered about their finances. He knew what would happen if his father's Wall Street colleagues learned that the Morrisons could no longer cover a dinner bill, let alone maintain their lavish lifestyle. My phone rang. David calling now, not texting. I declined the call and watched as he stood abruptly from the table, nearly knocking over his chair as he stepped away to try again. This time I answered. "Sarah," he hissed, his voice a mixture of fury and panic. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Seems I'm not worthy of recognition." I repeated calmly. "So I'm not responsible for family celebrations. You need to fix this right now. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for my father, for all of us?" "I have exactly the idea, David. That was the point. Where are you?" His voice changed, desperation creeping in. "We need to talk. I can explain about Jessica, about everything." "I'm sure you can. The problem is I've seen the financial statements, David, I've seen the emails. I know the Morrison empire is crumbling, and I know you've been hiding assets offshore before filing for divorce." His sharp intake of breath confirmed what I already knew. He never expected me to discover these things. He had underestimated me, just as his family had from the beginning. "Those were private," he said weakly. "Yes, they were. Just like the text messages from Jessica about the baby. Just like the script for announcing our divorce at your father's retirement dinner. Just like the seating arrangement deliberately excluding me." Silence on the line. In the club, I could see the manager now speaking to the entire table. Several other diners were watching with undisguised interest. The Morrisons' humiliation was becoming a public spectacle. Exactly what they had planned for me. "Sarah, please." David's voice had lost all its Wall Street confidence. "You don't understand what this will do to us." "I understand perfectly. That's why I did it. We can work this out. Come back to the hotel. I'll meet you there in 20 minutes. "No, David. I don't think we can work this out." I ended the call and stepped out from my hiding place. It was time for my final appearance as a Morrison. As I approached the table, 15 pairs of eyes turned to me. Some angry, some fearful, all disbelieving. Catherine spoke first, her voice shaking with fury. "How dare you ruin Robert's retirement?" I smiled, feeling a strange sense of calm. "I learned from the best, Catherine. After all, isn't this exactly what you planned for me? A public humiliation, an orchestrated exit. The only difference is I changed the ending." Robert stood. "This is outrageous. You had no right." "I had every right," I interrupted. "Every contract, every reservation, every arrangement was in my name or my company's name. I simply adjusted the plans." "You'll regret this." Amanda spat. "When David divorces you, you'll get nothing." "That's where you're wrong," I replied, looking directly at David. "I have copies of everything. The offshore accounts, the hidden assets, the fraudulent business dealings. I'm sure the SEC will find it all fascinating reading." Their faces turned ghostly white as the implications sank in. In that moment, I felt no triumph, no vindication. Only a profound sense of liberation. As I turned and walked away from the Morrison family for the last time, I left Manhattan the next morning, upgrading myself to first class on a direct flight to Los Angeles, using points I'd accumulated planning the Morrisons' previous corporate events. The irony wasn't lost on me. Behind me, I left a family in crisis, their carefully constructed facade crumbling in real time. Through the hotel concierge, I learned that the Morrisons had paid for their dinner with Catherine's vintage Cartier bracelet as collateral until a wire transfer could be arranged. By morning, word had spread through Manhattan's high-end hospitality network that the illustrious Wall Street family was having payment difficulties. The remaining vendors I hadn't personally canceled began requesting upfront payments rather than promises. My phone was flooded with messages, some threatening, others pleading. I read them during my layover in Denver, sipping champagne in the United Airlines lounge. Robert, this is actionable. Our lawyers will be in touch. Amanda, you've made the biggest mistake of your life. Jonathan, did you really think you could humiliate our family without consequences? Catherine's message was the most revealing. I always knew you were common. This vindictive display only proves what I've said from the beginning. But it was the succession of messages from David that told the real story of a family in freefall. First, you have no idea what you've done. Dad had a minor heart episode. Is that what you wanted? Then, the Whitman Group and Sterling Partners saw everything. Do you know what this means for our standing? Later, the hotel is demanding payment for the entire week up front. They say all guarantees have been cancelled. And finally, please, Sarah, I need to talk to you. It's about more than us now. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I forwarded the financial documents I'd gathered to my lawyer with instructions to hold them securely until needed. If the Morrisons pursued litigation, I would be prepared. When I arrived home to my new life in Los Angeles, I hired a moving company to pack my personal belongings from our Manhattan penthouse. I took only what was unquestionably mine: clothes, jewelry I'd purchased myself, my collection of business books, and the artwork I'd acquired before our marriage. Everything else, including the wedding gifts and items purchased jointly, I left behind. I wanted nothing that could tie me to the Morrisons' web of deceit. 2 days later, the Wall Street Journal published a small item in their markets section called "Investment Firm Faces Inquiry." The article mentioned financial irregularities and questions from institutional investors. While it didn't make front-page news, it was enough to send ripples through Manhattan's financial circles. David appeared at my new Beverly Hills office unannounced 1 week after I returned from New York. He looked haggard, the polished veneer of Wall Street success replaced by genuine desperation. "You need to come home," he said when I opened the door. "This has gone far enough. This isn't a negotiation tactic, David. This is divorce." He stepped inside without invitation, running his hands through his disheveled hair. "The SEC is looking into father's accounts. 2 board members have resigned. Mother had to cancel her charity gala because 3 major donors pulled out." "That sounds like a Morrison family problem," I replied. "Not mine." "It's your problem if I go down with the ship," he countered. "We're still married. My debts are your debts." I allowed myself a small smile. "Not when I have proof that you deliberately excluded me from financial decisions and hid assets with the intent to defraud me in divorce proceedings. My lawyer assures me that's enough to protect me." His facade cracked completely then. David sank onto my couch, head in his hands. "I never wanted it to be like this." "What did you want, David?" "To marry me for my event planning skills. To use me to manage your social calendar while you reconnected with Jessica. To discard me when I was no longer useful." "It wasn't like that in the beginning," he said quietly. "I did love you. But not enough to stand up to your family, not enough to be honest about your affair." I sat across from him, feeling strangely calm. "When is the baby due?" His head snapped up. "How did you?" 3 months, according to the texts I saw. "Congratulations." A heavy silence fell between us. Outside, California traffic hummed against the windows of my new office. Smaller than our Manhattan penthouse, but mine alone. Paid for with the proceeds from a business I'd built without Morrison money or connections. "I'll give you whatever you want," David finally said. "Just hand over those documents and sign an NDA. Name your price." That was the moment I realized the Morrisons still didn't understand me at all. After 6 years, they still saw me as someone who could be bought. Someone motivated by the same material concerns that drove their existence. "I don't want your money, David. I want my freedom. I want the truth acknowledged." I stood up, indicating our conversation was ending. The documents stay with my lawyer unless you try to drag me down with you. The divorce terms are simple. I walk away with what's mine, and Jessica. The baby. His voice was barely audible. That's between you and your conscience. I hope you'll be a better husband to her than you were to me. After he left, I stood by the window, watching the California sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. The scandal unfolded gradually over the following weeks. The Wall Street Journal ran a more extensive piece on Morrison and Associates' financial irregularities. Longtime clients quietly withdrew their portfolios. Catherine's position on 3 prestigious charity boards became advisory rather than active. Jessica's pregnancy became public knowledge when she was spotted at her obstetrician's office wearing an engagement ring. The timeline made it clear that their relationship had resumed long before our marriage ended. In Manhattan's financial circles, infidelity might be tolerated if discreet, but such blatant misconduct violated the unspoken code. My business thrived despite, or perhaps because of, the scandal. Clients who had once looked down on me now appreciated my discretion and integrity. The story that circulated wasn't about a woman scorned, but about a professional who refused to be used and discarded. 6 months later, I received an invitation that made me laugh out loud when I opened it, a request to bid on planning Catherine Morrison's next charity event. Apparently, desperation had overcome pride. I declined politely, citing a full schedule. The divorce was finalized without drama. The Morrisons, focused on salvaging their reputation and finances, agreed to my terms without argument. David and Jessica married quietly in a small ceremony at the Hamptons, their daughter born 2 weeks later. I sent no gift. On the 1-year anniversary of that night at the University Club, I found myself planning another corporate event in Manhattan. A Fortune 500 merger celebration at the Rainbow Room. As I stood on the observation deck overlooking the city's glittering skyline, phone in hand and vendors at my command, I realized something unexpected. I was genuinely happy. Not despite the collapse of my marriage, but because of it. The Morrisons had tried to make me feel small, to reduce me to an accessory in their grand narrative of Wall Street superiority. Instead, they had inadvertently freed me to reclaim my story. In losing what I thought I wanted, acceptance from a family determined to reject me, I had found what I actually needed. Not validation from people unworthy of my respect, but the courage to reject a life built on appearances and conditional love. I raised my glass of champagne to the city lights below, toasting the missing name tag that had shown me exactly where I belonged, not at their table, but at the head of my own. The corporate world that had once seemed so intimidating now felt like home. I had learned that true power doesn't come from old money or family names. It comes from knowing your worth and refusing to accept less. As Manhattan sparkled beneath me, I understood that sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is showing you exactly who they are. The Morrisons had done me that favor, and for that, I was grateful. Standing there in my element, surrounded by the success I had built with my own hands, I realized the missing name tag hadn't been a symbol of exclusion. It had been my invitation to freedom. Sometimes those who underestimate us teach us the most valuable lessons about self-worth. Sarah learned that respect cannot be bought with money or status. It must be demanded. Never let anyone make you feel unworthy of a seat at your own table. If this story inspired you to stand up for your dignity, please like and subscribe to join us in exploring more stories of strong women who fight for what they deserve.